Welcome, one and all, to the very first episode of the Orna's Garden podcast. I'm Brett Lloyd, and I'm here with my comrade in arms, Kate Hendrickson, and we're going to do something that, to the best of our knowledge, nobody else is doing. We're going to channel beings and share a lot of metaphysical and needed spiritual knowledge and information through these beings in a way that's conversational and hopefully you're going to find fascinating and interesting. And now I'm going to introduce Kate. She is awesome, and I'm going to let her tell you all the great things that she practices. So, Kate, take it away.
Thank you, Brett. Brett and I have been kind of working on this project the last 3 months, like practicing and kind of seeing how this all works out, and some really, really cool things that both of us didn't even know have been kind of surfacing as this whole thing unfolds. So, bit about me. So I'm here channeling what is called the seventh plane of existence. If anyone has heard of Yana Stibal and her sort of channeling of theta healing, is kind of where this started. I've been kind of on my own healing journey since 2020, and through various like learning about energy and then becoming a Reiki energy healer, and then sort of having a mind that was asking, like, is there more? Like, is there more? And as I'm sure many of you on this podcast have already experienced, when you ask your guides for things, they tend to get the ball rolling. And so I found myself in a theta healing class, and that was the first time that I actually felt like I touched the seventh. And a little explanation of the seventh is what we're channeling is the creation of all that is. So many people like to call it source, you could call it God, Allah, any but essentially when I'm up there, what it doesn't necessarily feel like a being as much as it is like the force that's running, the force that's creating us. It's like the river that flows through everything. Oftentimes when I'm up there, it's sort of before I ask a question or before I show up with any kind of intention, it's absolutely silent. It's very calm. It's very peaceful. And it's essentially like the essence of unconditional love, which is what we're all created from. This coming straight from Creator. And the cool thing about being up there is that you see absolute truth while you're up there. There's like an understanding that everything in the world is how it is, and that once you sort of release that ego and you release that like understanding of right and wrong, you release like sort of like all of the programs and conditions that we've been given. When you're up there, that kind of falls away, and you start seeing things as this like very beautiful balance and also of creation. And so when we're up there and there's and you're just up there to just feel it, there's really nothing to change. But then once you go up with a question, or you go up with a healing that you're asking for, or you go up with a I mean, I'll ask things about quantum physics. Like I'll ask things about things that I just want to know. It's like it's the creation of all things. And so I always get an answer. And being here with Brett, it was he channels a being called Orna, and I was asked what was like 3 months ago now, 4 months ago now. I had gotten a random call from a friend from a friend in Florida, and she was like, Brett's looking for someone to interview Orna, who you'll soon learn who Orna is. Would you be interested? And at first I was like, I mean, who doesn't want to interview an alien? Like, what? This is the project of a lifetime. Like, of course. And so, I kind of sat on some questions, and finally I was like, I don't know what to ask, but we'll pop up to the seventh plane and get some answers of what to ask, because Creator knows better than I do. And I kind of posed it to Brett after all. I was like, what if we did this from the seventh plane? What if we I'm channeling Creator, or I like to say, like, I guess I'm just, I guess channeling is the best word for it, because it's not essentially a being as much as it's a space and like an amalgamation of like particles is sometimes what it feels, and that like light and particles, what it feels like to me when I'm up there. But I was like, yeah, why don't we have why don't we have a discussion between these two beings, or these two entities that know more than we do. And then of course come to find out that they're like, you also have all of this, you guys are cutting yourselves short here. So um in this podcast, I hope, I mean, I hope you guys get some answers. And what we've also found is some of the information coming true might be a bit startling. It might be a bit hard to swallow at first. And as a practitioner for a couple years now, me speaking as me from Kate here on the third plane, who's also going through this human experience. um, I would say that when, and for anyone new to like the metaphysical kind of community, or new to like this whole idea of like shifting and like opening your mind to other things that you might not be able to see, or you might not be able to prove right away. It always tends to prove itself later on. But for those of you who are new to this space, when you're listening to things and it doesn't go, like it doesn't sit well with you, or you get fired up, or you like want to run away from the information, I guess like my ask is that you take a minute to sit with yourself and really connect in on how that feels, because a lot of this, you're not running into this podcast for no reason. Like you're not, this didn't come into your reality to just piss you off so you could like, I mean, it did, maybe, possibly, but listen to what's underneath that emotion, because there's there's a huge shift coming, which we talk about in like, well, we'll definitely hear more about this throughout this podcast, but there is a very big shift coming in humanity's future, in every, and in the future of souls, actually. Like it's not just humans, it's actually speaking to the soul, and how the soul experiences source, and how the soul is expanding. That is shifting right now. And a lot of this information, if you're here, it's because you are now being consciously aware of this shift that's going on. And this podcast is here to help you, and to give you more knowledge, and to give you more guidance on how to do that. And Creator, generally every time we do a session, is giving downloads. It's clearing, it's downloading. And if you hear some of that come up in this podcast, then just all you have to do is say yes to accept it, and you might notice pretty big changes in your life. So that would be my bit of an introduction. I'm sure more will come up, about what we do here, and I don't know, I think I'm running a bit short here, so we can get more into perhaps what it feels like to channel, and what it feels like to have access to other dimensions and beings, but that might be a whole other podcast. So I'm gonna give it back to Brett here, to Brett and Orna, to give their little piece of the story.
Thank you so much, Kate. I it has been right at close to 4 months now that we've been doing this, I think. So we've actually been working at it for a while, and I'm really excited by what we've got, what we're going to be sharing with people, and how we're going to present it. My name is Brett Lloyd. I'm a 63-year-old. I'm a musician by trade, and write songs, etc., of no particular special note currently. And I have been on a crazy spiritual journey that I've had a lot of amazing things happen to me very swiftly. Last year, in a circle class at the Cosmic Church of Truth in Jacksonville, Florida. I connected with Orna. Orna is a 10,000-year-old energy being of Arcturian descent who is on a mission from Source to assist in planet Earth's ascension to the fifth dimension. And she's got a message of love that she won't be content until every being who needs to hear this message has heard it. Then she says, I can go back to just being a musician again. So it's going to be a while before everybody who needs to hear Orna's message does. So we're going to utilize this podcast in many ways to share the messages of Creator and the messages of Orna. And they're not just going to be separate entities talking separately about different issues. They're going to be actively engaged in a conversation. And we don't know what's going to be said in advance. We just kind of, what do you think what would be our best first discussion, etc. And then we get to channeling. And Orna has her perspective, Creator has their perspective, and it's always interesting. It's never really boring. It's always very exciting for us because we're the ones doing the channeling, and we both have different methods for that. And here in a little bit, we'll start talking about what it's like to be channelers and what it feels like when you're actively channeling a being. And we're just really excited that you've taken the time out of your day to click on us and to listen to this discussion. And we're just really excited by what is possible with these two incredible beings of vast knowledge, like the ultimate of all knowledge between the two of them together. We could never hope to forget as many things as they know, I don't think. Anyway, with that said, basically we're going to talk now more about the actual channeling itself. And for me, Orna connects with me through a telepathic connection. I suffered very slight and minor brain damage. Was riding a bicycle and got hit by a car. And the technology of the early 1970s didn't detect that brain damage. Well, Orna certainly could. And because of that brain damage, she utilizes that to make her telepathic connection with me. And it's an incredible experience to bring her forward. I sort of step back to the background and I don't really hear what she says. I do feel the emotions of the conversation. Once in a while, I'll get one word here, one word there. It's interesting. My body, my physiology will have an emotional response to something that's said. I've come out of the trance before with my face like somebody threw a glass of water on me because I'd been crying. I had such a visceral emotional response to things that Orna was sharing. They were quite beautiful. And I've also come out of it laughing before because Orna also has an incredible sense of humor, thankfully. How could she connect with me and not have a sense of humor? We'll have to ask her about that one day. But that's what channeling is like for me. The one thing I want to share, though, most of all, I don't really remember what she talks about. I usually have to listen to it, or she will give me a blow-by-blow description internally here. The greatest joy, though, that I feel from channeling her comes at the end of every session, when I get to see the smiling faces, the beautiful expressions that people tend to have after they've been in Orna's presence and heard what Orna has to share with them. It's always an extraordinarily positive experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Your turn again, Kate. What's channeling, Creator like for you? What's it like channeling from the seventh versus what you are aware other people channel from?
This my channeling journey was um I think similar to most channelers. There was like some belief work to do on, am I really doing this? Is this really happening? Like is and everyone, I will say every one of us has psychic senses. It's not, I know like in kind of our like mainstream society, it tends to be separate out that there are channelers and there are psychics, and then I couldn't be, but that is farther than the truth. You have also psychic senses. And so for me, when I was in the class, there was a lot of belief work to be done because many of us have lived past lives where we've had access to divine information, and it was very dangerous for us. It got us killed, or there's a lot of energetic separations, or even in this life, a lot of people who maybe grew up in more restricted environments, and there's a fear of even accessing um the magic that you hold for fear of the repercussion, the ostracization, like all of the things that sort of keep it bound within you. And so to start, it was a lot of subconscious work to free myself from the belief that this thing that I felt my whole life was really real, that it was really happening, and that I could actually play and exercise in it and practice in it. And so when I was in that class, a lot of those beliefs that kept me stuck from being able to see this clearly were cleared out of my subconscious. And then I started working with clients, and very first, because I'm an artist, so a lot of stuff would come very visually. Like I would see things, I would feel things. And then with creator, you can actually ask for other senses. So you could be like, I want to hear things better. I want to smell things better. Then and those expansions started. And working with one-on-one clients, feels a lot different. This was like, even just doing this podcast was the first time that I was channeling, like just channeling creator straight. Because usually when I work with a client, it feels like I go up, I see their higher self. I ask the questions that, like, I asked creator, like, what is the bottom belief that is keeping them from where they're trying to go? And we start doing the work from there. And sometimes I'll see the situation very clearly. Sometimes I'll hear it. Sometimes creator will just speak a question, or it'll tell me a very specific thing to ask, or it'll just, or I'll be reading in my, like I'll see like it written out. It just depends on the client. So when I was first channeling, it was kind of a jumble of stuff would come in, and I would have to like filter through and like practice using uh, like my abilities along with creators' abilities to get this into something usable, like in in this realm. And then I started working on myself. And then when Brett came around and we started doing the channeling, it took a couple of sessions because it was almost like my brain was like separating out, because creator would start speaking about whatever the topic was. And sometimes it feels like there's a back room. And so if it's stuff that creator knew that I already knew, or that I was already aware of, it was almost like it would take me into the back room. And so I would be speaking the channel of all, which I don't would not remember what all came through. But in the back room, creator would be like, running through other like teachings with me, or like showing me other things, or downloading other things, or even problems I'm having in my life. Creator was like, okay, let's get to work on some of this. But if it was something that creator knew that this was new information to me too, it was like all of a sudden I was seeing the channel, like I could see what was coming through. And creator kind of being like, yep, this is you, this applies to you, remember, this applies to you. And sometimes it's interesting because Orna is a very feminine, comes through very, very, and creator changes. So sometimes, depending on how, because creator knows ahead of time all of the people that will be watching or listening to every episode. And so when I'm in that channel, what comes through feels very tailored to the people that will be interacting with this piece going out into the world. And so sometimes it's a very soft, sort of feminine way around the topic. Other times it seems very almost like a rigorous, cut and dry, like kind of get your act together kind of sort of feeling comes through of like, hey, like this is what you guys need to know. It might be uncomfortable, but they also always download things around it being comfortable. They when the hard stuff comes up, there's always clears around it if you accept them to make your life easier. I have seen Creator do some absolute miracle work with clients. It is I've seen people buy cars in 2 weeks that they like the week before were like, I really need this. And then here it is. No issues. I've helped quite a few autistic children in their relationship with their parents. I've seen that shift within hours. With my own self, like I used to have incredibly toxic behavior patterns. And Creator went through, we worked on the beliefs and the actual structure that I was making my reality and like why those behaviors were there. The next day, what behaviors? So it really, I mean, I mean, all things are possible through Creator. So as you're, and yeah, as you channel, like when you, sometimes it's hard to find the words in English of what you're feeling when you're in a channel. Like
So true.
the stuff, you just, sometimes I actually just go, we're just going to download this vibe. Your light body, your subconscious, your higher self knows exactly what we're talking about, but there just isn't words for what this feels like. And yes, so oftentimes the same where you're seeing something and you're like, oh, especially when you feel there we've had we'll probably have quite a few episodes on self-love, and I think that is the one that if there's anything that we could channel to you by the end of these podcasts, it's the true feeling that comes up when these beings show us what self-love really feels like, what unconditional love really feels like, the extent, the magnitude, the depth, the just the cleansing level of unconditional love. And it really, like, I think that is one of my favorite things to feel on a channel, is that reminder of like, oh, this is how that feels. Like this is like, yeah, I think that's one of the greatest gifts of channeling, and the greatest is being able to touch that and feel that in today, and still like have it linger in your everyday life, like as you're going through things. So hopefully we too can, from being to human to be like, can get this into the world, because I think we're really gonna need it for all the things that are coming up.
So very well said, my friend. And yeah, I can so resonate with a lot of what you said as a channeler myself. It's um, you know, the night that Orna connected with me, the ride home from that particular class was eventful. I was concerned, what is my wife going to say as I explain this to her? Is she going to think Brett's lost his marbles all over again? He found them, and then now he's lost them again. She had an interesting theory on that too. She thought, well, either he's the greatest con man in history, or he really has lost his mind again. And we'll talk more about that later down the road. I'm perfectly sane now, I promise. I have witnesses and paper to prove it. And then, or he's telling the truth. And thankfully, she went along with the truth side of things, because I couldn't have created a story with the word Orna in it for love nor money. And I'm a creative person, but that was not something in the forefront of my mind. And I knew about channelers prior to that night, we have a Gaia subscription. I enjoy watching a lot of the channels, Sheila Gillette and Daryl Anka and others, Wendy Kennedy. I just love watching them work. It's an incredible experience. But did I think I was going to be doing that in any way, shape, or form before that night? No, was not on my bucket list by any measure. But it has been extraordinarily positive. There's been zero negatives. I had never meditated in my life till June of last year. And then 2 months later, I decided to treat this mediumship circle class like a meditation. And that's when I started vibrating at a high enough frequency that Orna was confident that she could connect with me and her work could begin. And I found out also that we agreed to this before this incarnation, which was nice to know. I probably would have been more suspicious of Orna's presence if that wasn't something that she shared with me in a way that I really understood and could feel. But it's just been magnificent. She showed up August 4th. 2 months later, I was doing readings at the church's monthly psychic fair fundraiser. Who gets to do that? Who? I mean, I hadn't even thought about being a reader, thought about being a medium, thought about doing psychic things. It was never something that my whole prior 62 plus years of living, I'd never dreamed I would be doing this. But thank goodness, thank the creator of all things. I'm so lucky, it's just ridiculous. I wouldn't trade this away for anything. Nothing. I can't even imagine. It's been a year that Orna and I have been connected, and I just cannot imagine a day now without her presence. And I don't want to know what that feels like ever again, to be honest. Not in this incarnation. But we are very excited. We're excited to share the messages from these beings. We're excited to share our personal experiences as channelers with these beings. And in times, we're going to have question and answer sessions where the questions we answer, the beings answer, will come directly from you. And it's just going to be an incredible experience. And to our knowledge, nobody else is doing this. So you're getting something really unique when you watch both of us channeling at the same time. We're going to end this particular episode here real quick, and the next episode will be a full regular planned episode that includes 32 minutes of channeling from both of us together, and some interesting information. And we'll announce what the topic is right before the beings begin talking and sharing their thoughts on that particular issue. Kate, do you have anything you want to share right here at the end of this? I think for a first episode, we're doing pretty good so far.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm really excited to share just this whole experience. And then, I mean, the humor that comes through. I mean, beings have their own sense of humor, and sometimes it's really quite enjoyable to experience. And yeah, and if there's anything, I think, are we taking questions too? I imagine, like, if there's any sort of topics that people would like to comment on, they would like to see, like anything that you guys want to know about, big or small, send them in. We'll be excited to, we're never starved for topics, but we certainly, want to make sure you guys are all getting the information that you need from this pretty incredible opportunity of being able to have all this knowledge at your feet here. So, but thank you so much for sticking around with us today. And yeah, we're excited to to keep you guys a little longer.
Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to share with us. We're happy to share with you, and we look forward to the next time. Take care, be at peace, love and light, and all that good stuff. Take care. I can't find the button. There it is.